Welcome, my constant reader friends. I'm Tad. This is Tad Reads Books and Stuff. All right, so what are we going to do today? Today, I'm going to have some fun. We are going to do another top 10. But first, let's take care of some updates on my reading. As you can see, I am wearing my Purple Rain shirt today, so I had to wear my purple top hat. So what did I get done reading so far this week? So I did finish this. This is H.P. Lovecraft's Beauty and the Beast. This is a comic book series done in 4 parts. 1, 2, 3, and 4. All right, so I did finish reading this. Wow, what a fun series this was. So let me take one of these out here, the first one here. I always keep all my comic books hermetically sealed for my protection. So this is a comic book series that I backed on Kickstarter. It's by Trevor Mark Wart. And what he did was he did all the artwork in this series, and of course wrote the series himself. He's done several Kickstarters where he's done different things, but he does like the H.P. Lovecraft. So this is basically a pastiche, right? This isn't really a story that H.P. Lovecraft ever wrote, but it is written as if H.P. Lovecraft wrote it, and it was a blast. It really was. I'm so glad that I backed it and got it. Actually, in the 4th book, and I didn't even realize at the end it thanks all the backers, and my name is in the book. So that's pretty cool. But yeah, it's a pastiche. So it's as if basically, H.P. Lovecraft wrote Beauty and the Beast. And it has everything in it. It has Miskatonic University. It has Color Out of Space. It has the Dunwich Horror. It has everything in it. It has ghouls and, oh man, the artwork isn't my favorite of all time, but it's fun. It's interesting. The writing isn't perfect. There are some, I don't know, I guess, I'm not the grammar police by any stretch of the imagination, but sometimes I don't know if it was editing or whatever, there are some words that are actually, it seems like, are deleted from a sentence, for instance. Just a couple places, just like, 2 or 3 instances. Didn't take me out of the story at all. Very, very fun story. If you can get your hands on it, I don't know if you can actually. It's by Morbid Comics, which is, of course, done by Trevor. And I don't know, it was just fun. I think he's got another Kickstarter going right now. You can look him up. But anyways, I really enjoyed it. It was fun. I might go over a little bit more in depth later because I really want to get to this top 10. So real quick, I am still listening to The British Are Coming. This is volume 1. You can see here, I just marked it. This is where I'm at listening to it. All this stuff here are author notes and bibliographies and things like that. So I'm past halfway through with the book right now. It's going great. There are some really cool tidbits of information that I'm learning about the British and the Americans as well, or the colonists at the time. But I'll go over this more in depth when I finish it. It'll probably be finished pretty soon. The Haunting of Hill House. I only have about 30 pages left in this volume. Now there is, at the end of it, there's a bonus short story called The Summer People at the end. It's a short story, right? Well, it's not a short story. It's a novel, but it's only 235 pages in this volume. I'm having a blast reading it. I don't know why I haven't read this book before, The Haunting of Hill House. Holy crap, it is written so well. Shirley Jackson, now I know why she's won so many awards for this book. I'm going to go more in depth when I'm finished. I'll probably finish it today. But to be honest, I have not finished it yet, so I'm still reading it. I'm loving it. It's excellent. It's awesome. If you've seen the TV series that came out, The Haunting of Hill House, same name of characters, totally different story, but still the basic premise, kind of. I don't know. But I love that too. I love the TV series. All right, so what am I going to read next? I'm going to finish that probably today or tomorrow. So I'm going to go, now this is number 2. This is the second one in the Thrawn Ascendancy. And this is called Greater Good by Timothy Zahn. You know, I read the first one about 2 months ago. And I loved it. Easy read, fast read. So this is volume 2. I'm going to go on, start that real soon. And since I'm done with those, this is heavy. This is going to be my next graphic novel. If you've watched any of my content before, I have mentioned that Alan Moore is my all-time favorite graphic novel comic book writer of all time. This is From Hell. You all probably maybe seen the movie with Johnny Depp. My wonderful girlfriend got this for me for Christmas actually a couple years ago, and I haven't read it yet. So I'm going to be starting this. Of course, it's Alan Moore and Eddie Campbell. I don't know, I'm just randomly opening it. It's all black and white comic strip. But this is a heavy book, man. This is dense. That's the inside cover illustration. I can't wait to start reading this. Like I said, I love anything by Alan Moore. So that's what I'm going to be reading next for my graphic novel comic book stuff. All right, so let's get into what we're going to be doing today. So 2 months ago, I did a top 10. Now, I said top 10 classic fantasy novels of all time that I've read. I don't think I really titled that properly. I didn't want to come across as a classic fantasy. I meant anything from the 70s and back. So this is going to be anything that's I consider fantasy. You can argue with me in some of it, I'm sure. But anything that's written from the 80s till now. These are my 10 favorite fantasy novels that have been published from the 80s to now. Some of them, like I said, kind of border on the line maybe of not what some people would call fantasy. I'm not sure. But this is my list. So I did make some notes here so I can kind of keep on track so this doesn't, run a million hours like I tend to do when I start talking about books. So I made a list to try to keep it short, but let's get started. So my first one, number 10 on the list. Now you're going to see that some of these might be series, but I'm not grading the series. I'm just grading individual books. So some of them may be somewhere in a series, but they're my favorite book of that series. Not to say that that series is going to be on my 10 top series that I've read. Anyways, so number 10, Wicked. Of course, it's Wicked, the life and times of the Wicked Witch of the West. And this is by Gregory Maguire. I love his books. They're just so fun. Wicked, though, when this came out, I wasn't expecting something like this. I love this cover. It's got the circle cut out, and then you open it up, and of course, there's Elphaba right there. And if you haven't read this, and I don't know why you wouldn't have read this, it's great. Of course, they made the musical out of it. I've seen the musical. I loved the musical. I have the soundtrack. I play it in my car all the time. So it's just an all-around favorite of mine, even if you're not into Wizard of Oz or or anything like that. It's really awesome. So real quick, it's of course by Gregory Maguire. This was published in 1995, and this volume that I have has 406 pages. Now, really, it's the biography of Elphaba. So it's really from her birth through becoming the Wicked Witch of the East, and the Wicked Witch of the West. And most of it is her going to college, in her college years. And of course, her roommate is Galinda Arduina Upland, who of course becomes Glinda, the Good Witch. It's so awesome. Yes, it's a series. There's 4 books in the series now. I guess it could be a placeholder. All the books I think are good. All of them. Son of a Witch is just as good. You know, they're all a little bit different, telling different stories. And he was cashing in on the popularity, of course, of this book, but I don't blame him for that. If you haven't read this, just read it. I don't know if it's going to stay on my top 10, because there's a lot of good stuff being published in the fantasy realm, especially recently, which you may see in this list. Number 10, Wicked. All right, next, number 9. Told you right off the bat. John Gwynne, Malice. So this is Faith in the Fallen. There's 4 books in this initial story arc, and I just read this a couple months ago. It is this book is definitely a classic style, I think, fantasy. The second book, I think, starts going more into the grim dark. I've only read 2 books, and I've already put this one. I wouldn't put the second one. The second one I didn't think was as good as this one. But this book has jumped into my top 10 fantasy novels, recently published of all time. This was published in 2012. This has 628 pages, and pretty much it's a story of good versus evil, really, right? It's the Black Sun versus the Bright Star. Well, who's the Black Sun? Who's the Bright Star? That's what we're trying to figure out. I think we're already there in the second book already. But Corbin is pretty much the main, I guess, protagonist in the story. There are a lot of characters in here. I do have one problem with John Gwynne. I've mentioned it before. He's got Corbin, Corwin, Cowlin. He's got like 5 people named almost similar. I don't know. I don't know why he did that, but that kind of confuses me sometimes when I'm starting a new series and a lot of the characters have similar type names, keeping them straight. But other than that, I freaking love this book. This is already, well, number 9 in my top 10 more recently published fantasy novels. Got to read that one. I'm going to be reading the 3rd book, listening to it probably next month. We'll continue with that series. All right, so that's 10 and 9. Let's move on to number 8. This one, if you guys haven't read this, you got to read this. Gail Carriger. This is Soulless. This is so she writes, it's kind of steampunky, right? And it's also, what did I write here? Well, let me read what I wrote. So it was published in 2009. It has 398 pages. This volume, this is a hardback illustrated version that I have. And the cool thing is, I did get it signed by Gail. I've met her several times. She is fantastic. She's very intelligent. She speaks like 4 languages. She's got archaeology degree. She's got a writing degree. I mean, this lady is something else, and she always dresses steampunk. And she's awesome. You walk up to her and want to talk to her, and she will stop whatever she's doing and talk to you. She has several different series now. I thought I had some written down in here. Yeah. So she has the Parasol Protectorate. That's this series. Okay. And then she has the Custard Protocol, which is in this, I think it's a little bit before this time period. I don't know. Sorry. The Paracel Protectorate manga. So she has Soulless and 3 mangas. I have them. They're awesome too. And then she's got Finishing School, and then she's got some other ones now. So, what is this? So, this follows. It says it's a steampunk paranormal romance. Yes, it's a romance. Yes, it's steampunk, and yes, it's paranormal. All of it's in it, and it's just a wonderful story. So this story is about Alexia Terabati. I think that's how you pronounce her name. And the problem with her is she has no soul. And she's starting to get older. She has some sisters, and her parents want her to get married off, but she's very strong-willed woman. And anyways, it's kind of, yeah, I mean, it's a paranormal love story. And there's werewolves. There's this guy, Lord Connell McCann. He's a member of BUR, B-U-R, which is the Bureau of Unnatural Registry. Again, there's vampires, werewolves, there's the soulless, and there's a kidnapping, and there's murders going on, so it's a murder mystery. It's awesome. The series is awesome. If you have not read Gail Carriger, please run out, buy Soulless. You'll be pleasantly surprised. You'll love it. It's my number 8. All right, let's move on. Number 7. All right, so everybody knows this one, and you might think that it would be, I don't know, higher on my list, but Harry Potter and the Order of the Phoenix. This is book number 5. This isn't a placeholder. This is my favorite book in the series. Why is it my favorite book in the series? This, to me, is when shit starts hitting the fan. I mean, from the beginning, yes, it's kind of a YA story. And they start to age and they start growing, and more. It gets darker and darker as it goes. This is when it really, I think, really starts getting dark and really getting deep. Of course, the books after it are amazing as well. The books in front of it are amazing too. I love this series, Harry Potter. I don't know what else to say about it. Everyone knows, or most people are going to know Harry Potter. But this is my favorite book of the whole series. And my number 7. This book was published in 2003 and has 870 pages. J.K. Rowling, of course. Matter of fact, just yesterday, or the day before, I went and saw the 3rd movie in Fantastic Beasts. Awesome. You will learn some crazy things if you have not seen it yet. I'm not going to give anything away, but I loved it. I love everything in the Harry Potter universe. I don't know what else to say, but that's my favorite Harry Potter book. And it's number 7. All right, we're moving on. Now this one, this is kind of a placeholder. So this is Promethea, and this is by Alan Moore. And I've just pulled out a couple here, the compilations. There's 32 comic books in this series, but it is a placeholder for me, basically because Alan Moore is the greatest comic book writer of all time, in my opinion. So you could put any of his comics here. Of course, Watchmen. Watchmen, in my opinion, is the greatest single comic book series ever written to date. Although I have not read Saga yet. I'm going to start that soon. So we'll see. But right now, pretty much anything Alan Moore does. Watchmen, From Hell, I'm going to be reading. V for Vendetta, awesome. League of Extraordinary Gentlemen, awesome. I mean, I can go on and on. He writes some cool ass H.P. Lovecraft, Cthulhu, Mythos comic books as well. But Promethea, the one reason why I'm showing this one instead of Watchmen or some of the other, books that he's written is because I don't see a lot of people talking about Promethea. So what is Prometheus? Well, first of all, this was published in 1999, 32 issues, and it's about this girl, Sophia Bangs, and she's, when it starts, she's a college student, but it's kind of in a futuristic New York City, 1999 kind of world, and she gets possessed by a powerful entity known as Promethea. And of course, it's a Greek goddess thing. And if you read this, you will learn so much about the Greek gods and the pantheon therein. But in today's world, but it's an alternate 1999 type of thing. And her job is actually to bring about the apocalypse. It's freaking awesome. When I started reading this, I hadn't heard a lot about this. Of course, I've read League of Extraordinary Gentlemen and all those. Miracle Man, one of my all-time favorites. I'm gonna have to do an Alan Moore thing. I'll just do a whole video sometime on Alan Moore. But this one just blew my mind how well it was written, and some of the art in it is really trippy. I mean, if you're doing any type of drugs while you're reading this, the pages may come to life. Just a disclaimer. But it's really freaking good. So I put this up here, but you could put anything Alan Moore up here, and it's going to be in my top 10 always of all time. This I put in as number 6. All right, let's move on. Number 5. Everyone's going to know this one, of course. Stephen King, The Gunslinger. Some of you, because I love Stephen King, you may think that this would be higher on my list. But it's not. I don't consider Stephen King so much of a fantasy writer, but I don't really consider him a horror writer either. He just writes cool, mystical mysteries. I don't know, like H.P. Lovecraft, really. Weird tales, I'll say. But this, really, everyone has pretty much come to agree, is a fantasy novel. And I think it's one of the best. Now, why do I have this over other ones? I do feel that this is probably my favorite book out of all of them. I know a lot of people like other ones. I do love the drawing of the 3. I think that's when it really starts going with, he's drawn the cast together and they move forward through the rest of the books. So I do love the drawing of the 3, but overall, I think when I was reading those comic books last month, it just got me to remember how much I really loved this initial book, The Gunslinger. I'm not going to go into Roland and the whole story of this. Everyone knows this. But suffice it to say, so this was actually originally published in 1978 in a magazine, fantasy science fiction magazine. And then, of course, got published and made into a book eventually. This is the hardback version. And this version has 251 pages. I love this book. And it's number 5 on my list. So what does that tell you? I've got 4, 3, 2, 1 left. These are the cream of the crop for me for fantasy novels published from the 1980s to today. This is going to be on the list. I think, this author is going to be on the list. Terry Brooks. Kingdom for Sale Sold. This freaking little book. Holy crap. Look at the cover. It's almost YA-ish, I guess. I mean, a lot of his writing, I think, tends to be not so super serious all the time. But what a magical book. This is just a fun read. This, I'll do the numbers here. So this is Magic Kingdom for Sale Sold by Terry Brooks, published in 1986. This hardback here has 324 pages in the story. And what is it about? It's about this guy, Ben Holiday. So he's a highfalutin lawyer in Chicago. And one day there's an accident. He loses his wife, and his wife was pregnant at the time. And it just wrecks his world. He doesn't even want to live anymore. He just wants to go away. And then, for some reason, he's reading this high-class, highfalutin Christmas magazine. Remember when we used to get those Christmas magazines? We couldn't wait when we were kids to go through them. He gets this really like Richie people Christmas magazine, and he finds this article in it, and what it does is it says that for sale, Magic Kingdom, $1 million. Well, he needs something to, I don't know, believe in. He's just so depressed, and at the end he says, what the hell, I'll buy a Magic Kingdom. I know it's BS, but I'll do it. He hooks up with this guy. He responds to the ad. He gives him $1 million. He gives him the guy gives him an amulet, and he freaking ends up going to a magical kingdom. Well, he owns the magical kingdom now, so he's like the king. And there's Abernathy the dog is like his squire. Oh man, it's so freaking good. Quester Thews is, you know, the wizard, but he's like doesn't work all the time, his magic. But there's like 5 or, holy cow, 6 books I think in this series now, and it's freaking fun as hell. Again, people put down Terry Brooks. I talk about all the time. He's amazing. Please read more Terry Brooks. This is another series. If you don't want to read Shannara series, I have like 40 million books in it. You can read this one. It's great. You're going to love it. It's just pure entertainment. That right there is my number 4 favorite recently published fantasy book of all time. All right, down to the last 3. So I will be making my favorite 10 or 20 a video of my favorite 10 or 20 books of all time. Eventually, I have had some people actually ask me in the comments to do that, so I will. This probably will be on it, just to forewarn you. Number 3, Clan of the Cave Bear by Jean Auel, M. Auel. I love the series. The series may not be on my favorite series of all time. At least the first 2 books were amazing. Mammoth Hunter, I don't know. It starts to drop off a little bit too, I don't know. But why is this so important to me? When I read it, I guess, I had never read anything like this prehistoric fantasy, historic history. It's Earth's Children is the series, name of the series. She is amazing. She did tons of study on the prehistoric times. Now this story, well, let me read the numbers again. I'm sorry. This was published in 1980, 468 pages. And what it is it's a story of this girl. She starts off, she's 5 years old. Her name is Ayla, and she's an orphan. She got left behind because of a horrific earthquake that pretty much destroyed her settlement and her people. She's actually a Cro-Magnon lineage during the prehistoric times, and she just starts wandering. She gets attacked by a mountain lion and gets scratched, but it doesn't kill her. And she finally runs into this clan of Neanderthals, and one of the ladies, the witch doctor, the family of the witch doctor, take her in, and she's different than them. She stands up straighter. She has blonde hair and blue eyes. You know, they're more hunched over, dark skin, dark hair. They do communicate, but more through grunts and groans and things, where she can actually form words a little bit differently, sounding differently. You have, if you haven't read, a lot of people probably saw the movie. The movie does not do this book justice at all. This book is one of the 5 books that when I read it, I dreamt about it. I was in this world, and it really meant a lot to me reading this book. I've recently listened to it again, and it's still one of my all-time favorite fantasy novels. This is Clan of the Cave Bear, and it's number 3. You gotta read it. Next, now we're down to the last 2. These 2 pretty much can be interchangeable. I think one of them you're gonna know if you've watched any of my other videos. But I'm going to put this one as number 2. It's probably going to be on one of my top 10 series of all time. But I'm gonna show you what it is. This is number 2. Number 1. Well, you'll see what number 1 is. Of course, Tad Williams, Dragonbone Chair, Memory, Sorrow, and Thorn. The first book. I read this book and I was blown away. Of course, I had read, Lord of the Rings, The Hobbit. I had read Sword of Shannara, Elfstones, Wish Songs. So I already had it. I feel like a good base in, classic fantasy. But Tad's writing is amazing. His ability to have hundreds of characters and multiple storylines going. This really was the first time that I saw something like that at that grand a scale, and then brought together at the end so perfectly. He hits the landing. But out of those 3 original books, now of course, as you know, there's more. This is the first one, and it's the best one. Let me give you some numbers on this. I debated it. This was going to be number 1 or number 2, and I just went ahead and did number 1. I didn't even write down the numbers because. So this is 765 pages. Wow. And it was published in 1988, of course, by Daw Books. Please, if you haven't read any Tad Williams, pick this book up, read it. I think you'll love it. Of course, I know a lot of people now want to listen or read Grimdark as the new fantasy. This is classic, epic fantasy at its best writing. Tad Williams, Dragonbone Chair. And number 1, I don't know if I've ever talked about this book on this channel, but all right, here we go. Jonathan Strange and Mr. Norrell. Susanna Clarke. Holy crap, this is a good book. And this is her first novel. This is the first novel that she ever wrote. Everybody now from last year's talking about Piranesi, which is great. But this was the first book she ever wrote, and it's massive. The numbers on it are, it was published in 2004, 782 pages. There's even footnotes at the bottom of some of the pages. What is it? So I wrote down here, it's an alternate history of the 19th century England during the Napoleonic Wars. But it's a story of magic. At the time of the war, Mr. Norrell, what's his name again? Gilbert Norrell, is really the only true magician. He can do some magic. It's mostly like weather magic, kind of helps the army out, you know, and things like that. He can do some magic, but he gets a letter from this guy that no one's ever heard about, Jonathan Strange, saying that he can do some crazy shit. And he will give a demonstration. Of course, Mr. Norrell, he's too highfalutin, he's too busy, you know. He doesn't believe this crap. He kind of knows that there's no such thing as real magic. But there is, of course, he knows too. But anyways, eventually he goes, Jonathan Strange does animates some statues and stuff, and it is freaking amazing. And then it just goes from there, man. It takes off. So these guys, they start studying together, and they're kind of friends. But then, of course, the student, you know, outshines the master, and they split off, and now they hate each other. But there's intrigue and politics combined, and there's also maybe another true magician that's an evil magician, and some evil books of magic. And holy crap, you've got Neil Gaiman writes a bit on the back of it, of this book. It's freaking awesome. And for a first-time author, I believe she was like an editor in a big publishing company in England, and she was just like, I can do that. And she sat down and wrote this book. It took her forever, and she really didn't publish much after. Ladies of Grace Adieu and Piranesi is all she's done. But oh my God, this is good. There was a made for TV series that they did. It wasn't too bad. I mean, I enjoyed it. I liked it. But I've read this twice. I've listened to it once. I'm trying to get my girlfriend to read it. It is awesome. If you've never read this book, yeah, it's a doorstopper. It's going to take you a while, but it's worth. Her writing is amazing. The storytelling is amazing. The atmosphere is amazing. Jonathan Strange and Mr. Norrell, my number one, what I'm calling more recently published fantasy novels that I have read that are on my bookshelf. There you go. Whew. All right, guys. I hope you stuck around and listened to all my ramblings. I tend to do that. If you are new to my channel, please, if you found any benefit or any fun here, please go ahead and subscribe, like, and always, please, send me some comments. I love seeing people's comments. If you're coming back to my channel, thank you so much. I really appreciate everything, every comment I've ever gotten. Thank you very much. Alrighty, guys. Peace out.